Today we're going to talk about neuroscience of stress resolution and how to start transforming triggers into opportunities. And so I think a good place to start here is by looking at the myth and the reality around stress. And I think a common myth is that stress comes from something external to us, that our job is stressful, or our relationships are stressful, or financial situations are stressful. Okay, and this not only is a myth, but what it does, it really robs us of the power to transform stress. Because if stress comes from outside of us, then we cannot do anything about it. And so if we look at the reality of stress and understand that stress actually arises from what I call the invisible wounds that are caused by, again, what I call the conditional love and trauma that we were not able to process. And those invisible wounds cause us to misperceive ourselves and misperceive the world around us. Okay, this is where stress comes from, really. And these wounds, this split from our core self or authentic self, if you like, is what's causing all these triggers for us. And this conditional love that I refer to is, I think we've all experienced it as children, when we had to stifle our true expressions and our emotions in order to feel accepted and loved. Okay. And so if you think about it, how many of you have experienced being told to stop crying when you were upset when you were little? Or even told to calm down when you were too excited? Okay, there's always some sort of stifling that was going on for most of us. And so it's really important to acknowledge that. A lot of the times we have this belief, or we think of trauma as something that has had to be big and really, really traumatic. But these are micro traumas, and they cause us to split from ourselves, from our authenticity. And that's what's causing this friction and this stress. And so then as a result, we end up putting on all sorts of masks that cover our persona, our true self, in order to fit in with the society. And this is an ancient survival need, because when we are evolving, we needed to live in communities, because otherwise we wouldn't survive because of the predators. And so there is this inherent need to fit in, to feel accepted and to feel loved. And that's what's really causing this split. And when we look at it today from a perspective of research on loneliness, loneliness is also an indicator of many diseases and even death today. So there's this real need to belong. And I personally think we as human beings, we have two needs: to fit in, to belong, to survive, and to be ourselves, to be authentic, to be able to express who we truly are without fear of being rejected. And so that's a lot of the stress that we experience today comes from there, because we are no longer experiencing real danger. And then, of course, part of our inner wounding, it comes from trauma that is a bigger trauma that we were not able to process when whatever situation we were experiencing was happening. And so I wonder if we can do a short exercise, it's self-reflection, on what mask or masks you may be wearing now that once kept you safe. Because again, remembering we create these masks to be able to fit in and feel accepted and feel safe. But now it's causing stress in your life. And before we start, let me share my own story, because I feel that when we share authentic stories, people can relate better and understand what's asked. And so my mask, I had a couple, I had few, but the two I'm gonna mention is, one of the biggest masks was the mask of the invisible one, of the invisible person, of the invisible little girl, that made me become someone that hid from conflict. I convinced myself that I never needed anything, because it felt safer for me to be silent and to be a good girl. It felt safer for me not to express my needs and my authentic self to an angry and frustrated mother. My mom was dealing with a lot of her own invisible wounds and her trauma, and she was really angry and frustrated. And so I created this belief that if I don't express myself and if I don't ask for anything, I'm safe. And I've also created an imposter mask because I was only told what I've done wrong when I was growing up. I was never celebrated for my achievements and the things I've done right. Okay, so bad grades were punished, good grades were just normal. Tidy room, normal. Messy room, punished. Okay, and so these masks then ended up leaving me in a situation that was creating this underlying stress in my nervous system because I left everyone make decisions for me. I never believed in myself because I was completely disconnected from my true needs and from my potential. I had no idea what's possible in life. And so let's take a moment and reflect on what mask is hiding your true potential. What mask is creating stress in your life? Okay, and this may be a mask of the perfectionist, or a high achiever, or a caregiver, or an imposter. It can be a mask of a rebel or a clown. It can be something else. And so just take a moment to think, what mask did you create in order to feel safe when you were younger? And then it may be difficult for you to even identify the mask because a lot of the times these masks become inherent part of our psyche. And so we are so convinced that we are them. And so just again, taking a moment to reflect maybe on what belief, you don't have to call it a mask, but on what belief you have about yourself that or the world that is causing you stress, that is causing this inner tension. Okay, and a lot of the times we think of stress and we talk about stress and we think of this higher energy and chaos and anxiety. But stress can also look like this numbing withdrawal self, like what I've experienced when I was younger, wanting to be invisible. Okay, and so as we reflect on this as well, I have another question, and it's to reflect on how many of you shoot yourselves and the world. I should be better. I should be doing things differently. Or my partner should do this and that differently. Okay, I think that word should be deleted from our dictionaries. And so as long as we shoot ourselves, we are expecting from ourselves to be someone that we are not. Okay, so where are the moments in my life that I shoot on myself or the world? Okay, and this is what's really causing us not to know ourselves, not to understand why we're here, what's our purpose. And that's causing a lot of inner conflict because we are creative human beings, but we've been conditioned to become human doings, and creativity gets stifled. We totally disconnected from our potential. And what often happens, and maybe I'll let you reflect on this too, just take a moment and see if you can even imagine what your life could be without these invisible wounds and these limiting programs. Because a lot of people can't even imagine, and I know that I couldn't. My world was really constricted. And so I couldn't even take those blinders off and imagine until I started to do deeper work on myself and I started to actually experience the possibilities that are out there. And so a lot of the reasons why people are not knowing themselves and why they're not even aware of their limiting programs, because they operating below the level of our conscious awareness. They are in our subconscious, they are in our nervous system. And so there is a lot of frustration that arises from that as well, where I see people try to improve themselves and they feel stuck because they are only able to work at the level of their conscious mind, that cognitive level, which needs a willpower and a logic. But when these programs were born, we didn't have any logic. That part of our brain wasn't developed yet. So we have to come back to the nervous system that was experiencing all those feelings and that overwhelm of whatever situation and experiences we lived through. And so, since this is a workshop on neuroscience of stress resolution, I want to really highlight here that it's our nervous system that expresses the programs of our subconscious mind. Okay, and so we can learn to identify these programs and these beliefs by learning to understand our nervous system and how those programs are expressed. And we'll talk about it just in a minute. Okay, but before we go there, because the nervous system does talk to us in a form of sensations and feelings, I have another moment of reflection for you. How many of you are not comfortable fully embracing your feelings? Right? I know I wasn't. I was so disconnected, so disassociated from my feelings. I was rock hard. Nothing could touch me. I used to be really proud of having high pain threshold. Okay, this was a total disassociation. And so just think about what may be some of the strategies that you use to distract yourself from your feelings. Mine used to be extreme dieting and extreme exercise. And that was a way for me to feel my body in a safe way. Okay. Some people turn to work. There's a lot of workaholics in today's world. Some people use alcohol. Some use food, emotional eating. Okay. There's so many different coping strategies. And so again, identifying your unique coping strategy is going to help you shed more light and bring more awareness into being able to start to work with these invisible wounds. All right, so this is your nervous system. It's a very simplified chart, and since we are talking about neuroscience, we have to talk about the nervous system and look at how it expresses all of these dysfunctional in adulthood limiting beliefs and these programs. Okay, and as I mentioned, the nervous system talks to us through sensations and feelings. So rather than thinking about how do I think most of the time and I have to change my thinking, which is really impossible because we have about 60,000 thoughts per day and about 90% of them are unconscious. So that's where we get lost and frustrated and stuck. So let's start to think about it in the form of feeling. How do I feel most of the time? And you look at these three colors, and these three colors represents the different states of your nervous system. And the green color represents the state of safety, and the yellow and red represents the state of protection. So the nervous system has only two roles. It's number one, priority is to protect you. And when the nervous system deems that you're safe, then there is healing that's happening. Then there is personal growth that's happening. Then there is more stress resilience that comes from there as well. Okay. And so how do we know how our nervous system learned to operate from our childhood well into our adulthood? Well, by looking at this chart and looking at the left side where all these feelings and emotions are written down, and just seeing if you can map your own nervous system on this map. Are you in the green? Are you feeling safe and connected and open-minded and joyful most of the time? Or maybe you in the yellow zone where you most of the time feel worried and you tend to overthink. There is some anxiety. You quick to frustration. There's this extra energy nearly felt in your system where you always feel on the edge and mobilized looking for danger. Or maybe you're in this red zone where you feel more numb and shut down like I did when I was younger. Okay, there is a depression that comes or falls into this category. People are feeling unmotivated procrastination comes from here. So where is it on this map that you feel that your nervous system takes you when you face with stress or a challenge? And again, we're looking at this with understanding now that these programs, the conditioning of the nervous system, happened when we were young, when we didn't understand the world, when we didn't have the tools to process what was happening around us. And so I'm hoping that this alone is going to help you bring more self-compassion, because we get lost by and stuck by beating ourselves up. Oh, I wanted to do this and I couldn't, I didn't do it. I'm never going to get it right. And so really with compassion, looking at this and saying, okay, maybe I am more in a yellow most of the time, or maybe I'm more in the red most of the time, which is what happens when we deal with stress, when we perceive life as stressful. And then when you look at the right side of the chart, there's that orange box that I've created there. And that helps us understand that physical symptoms and chronic health issues are also a telltale sign for us to start understanding more or get more clarity about where our nervous system is anchored in. Okay, and so a lot of the things like muscle tensions and headaches and chronic digestive issues and immune issues, even sleep problems. People that are in this yellow zone, this fight and flight, are people that often experience inability to rest. Okay, and so just looking around this map and starting to map where your own system learn to operate from. And in a healthy nervous system, there's flexibility, okay? Because we do meet challenges every day. And so the healthy nervous system, what that means is that we are anchored in this green zone, but when we need to get mobilized, imagine you crossing the street and there is a speeding car that comes from nowhere, then you can get that adrenaline rush in your body and your muscles, and you can move out of the way quickly so you don't get hit. Or imagine you have a deadline at work. Again, you need to get mobilized and get the job done. But what happens after this danger, whether it's a real danger like the car, or whether it's a perceived danger like deadline at work, when that's done, when it passes, then the nervous system is able to take you back to this green zone. And that's where healing happens. That's where personal development happens. We are able to reflect on what just happened to us, on our past, and extract wisdom out of it. Okay? What happens for a lot of people, they are taken into this yellow or red zone and they're never able to really anchor themselves back in the green. Okay? And that's not saying that they never in the green. They're just not spending enough time in this green zone for their body to be able to heal, and for their mind, for their subconscious to be able to start looking into the past and seeing, oh, this is what happened to me, but it doesn't define me. This is just an experience, and I can learn from it. And there is so much wisdom in it when I'm able to process that emotional charge that is so oftentimes attached to it. Okay, so we're really looking at working with the nervous system and dancing with it in a way where I understand where my nervous system is taking me when certain things happen. And I'm now going to learn how I can work with the nervous system through practices and exercises to start anchoring it in this green zone more, so I can actually become more stress resilient. Okay, and again, stress is not what happens on the outside, it's what happens within us, which gives us the power to resolve it. Okay. And so maybe we have a time for another short story, because I think clinical stories are really empowering. And I remember a client that came to me and she was really burned out and really frustrated. And she felt like she had to hold everyone above water. She felt like she was responsible for making everyone around her happy. Okay, and when we started working and I asked her, about her relationship with her father, her response was, I've always had a great relationship with dad. I was daddy's girl. Okay. And so I'm like, okay. And I knew that the wound comes from there because of the work that I do at the subconscious level. But we needed time, so we continued to work. And as we resolved some of the layers of the stress and limiting programs, we got to the place where she started to feel safe to acknowledge that her dad used to come home often from work really frustrated and grumpy. And it was too overwhelming for her to even run up and ask him to play with her because she would get this frustrated, grumpy response. And so for her, the belief that, or the program that she's created that made her feel safe was, oh, I can't express myself. I can't ask for help. I can't ask for anything. I have to make sure that that is okay. I have to make sure that everyone around me that is experiencing some emotional distress is okay. And so that worked for her during childhood because she didn't have the emotional support to be able to understand and process what she was feeling. But in her 50s, it really got to her. It was burning her out, burning her out throughout her adulthood. And she got into her 50s and she was just in a really burned out state. And it was difficult because that belief has been there with her for 50 years. And so to deconstruct it, for her to really, really be able to untangle herself from that was a journey, was a process. And it always is. Because again, our nervous system, our brain needs time to we are becoming a new person as we untangle these old limiting beliefs. Okay, and so as we worked on this untangling, a lot of her physical symptoms just disappeared as well. She used to be on medication for migraines and heart issues. That all went away. Okay, and so as we lift this heavy energy that sits over our psyche and that causes us to feel stress in life, we also lift a lot of the weight that's been burdening our health. And so a lot of magic happens in this process of unburdening. All right, so let's get to some practical tools that you guys can start to implement to help you transform triggers into opportunities, to help you find this wisdom that we all have access to, that is only found in the space between the trigger and our response. Okay, a lot of the times we get triggered and then we get totally absorbed by our emotional state, from which then the access to our prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of our brain that has ability to logic and reason, it's disconnected momentarily. And so we just lost in our emotional chaos and we can't think clearly. Okay, I think most of you have experienced it. I know I have. And so again, understanding what we've spoken till now, that triggers are really our invisible wounds waking up because the body wants us to be in the best shape possible. It wants us to experience this life as vibrantly as possible. Understanding that when the nervous, when you are triggered, your nervous system is dysregulated. Your nervous system is not in a green zone. Okay, and so with this understanding, hopefully taking that pause, taking that step back, the next time you trigger it is going to be easier, right? Remembering. And again, this is all about practice. And so the first time after this workshop, you may go out there and you get triggered and you don't remember. Don't worry about it. The next time you will. And the next time you may not remember, but just focus on celebrating when you remember. Don't focus on celebrating the negativity. Okay, the brain will hijack you into this negativity bias. And so the next time you're out there and you get triggered and you remember this workshop, take a pause. Even voice it out to yourself out loud or silently. Tell yourself, I'm triggered right now. My nervous system is in a yellow, or my nervous system is in a red. And I'm going to be compassionate with myself. Take a couple of deep breaths through your nose. And if it's necessary, because sometimes we find ourselves in situations that are so overwhelming, if it's necessary, then just excuse yourself and remove yourself from the situation, right? Excuse me, I have to use the bathroom, or excuse me, I need to go and take a breath of fresh air. And then, well, once you were able to step aside, I'll invite you to just take a moment to observe what's arising in the body. And by that, I mean in your nervous system. What's coming up in your nervous system? And you map that through feeling the sensations your body is experiencing. It may be tension in the throat. It may be pressure over your chest. It may be a knot in your stomach. What is my body going through right now? What is my nervous system going through? And just allow your nervous system the space and a loving awareness to go through that process. Okay, a lot of the times what happens, we feel something in our body and we try to figure it out with our mind. And then we get worried and we start to overthink and we go into the worst case scenarios, because that's what the brain does to help us survive. And so out of the mind, into the body, I'm just going to give my body space to experience this uncomfortable feeling of whatever it is, pressure, heat, cold, choking, whatever it may be. And I'll just sit with it. Now, if you truly allow for these feelings arise in your body, it will not take longer than 90 seconds. Okay, there is a biochemical reaction that's happening from a perspective of how emotions wake up our biochemistry. Okay, so there's this biochemical cascade that's happening in your body that's causing all these feelings of discomfort and tension. If we allow for it to happen without thinking about it, it will complete itself in about 90 seconds. Oftentimes it's in less time. And so remembering, okay, this is just a biochemical process that's happening in my body. Give my body space. That's all your body needs. And step number 3, once you are calm, which sometimes happens hours after, sometimes it takes days. I remember sometimes it would take me days to feel safe enough, to feel that I was in this green zone, to be able to reflect on what happened holistically, right? And when we reflect on things, and I think you can all relate to this, sometimes we get so triggered we can't think clearly. And then once we calm, we look back and we realize that we have either overreacted or underreacted, that that situation wasn't dangerous at all. And so reflect on that later when you calm and write it down. Write down how you responded and how would you like to respond in the future, right? And sometimes you'll find that maybe your response was appropriate. I think most of the time you'll find that it wasn't, that the situation wasn't as dangerous as you perceived. And so that reflection and that written reflection is really important here as well. Okay. And number 4, taking full responsibility. Because as we said at the beginning, if we continue to point fingers on the outside of us, we're just giving our power away, right? We cannot change the environment, but we can change how we respond to the environment. We can change what happens in our own nervous system by acknowledging and working at the nervous system level. And so this is a part of mindfulness exercise that will help you start to distance yourself from this stressful event. And then let's move on and talk a little bit about how you can start working with your nervous system directly to bring it into this green zone more and start to anchor it in the green zone. And so one of the most powerful and I think most recognized ways is to work with your vagus nerve. Now, your vagus nerve is like your stress manager and your healer. Okay, it's the longest nerve in the body. You see it here in the picture. It comes from the brain and it goes all the way down and supplies all of your organs. And it's what helps you to be in this green zone, so then you can, with more safety, look back at your experiences and really see more wisdom in them rather than danger. Okay, and some of the techniques you can use to work with this nerve and tone it and optimize it is deep diaphragmatic breathing. Okay, always remembering to breathe through your nose, or inhale at least through your nose, because when we mouth breathing, that actually activates that fight and flight response, that yellow banner on our autonomic nervous system map. So breathe deep, long breathing through the nose all the way into the belly, trying to expand all four parts of the rib cage. Okay, so I would recommend that you do some sort of breathing, conscious breathing, a couple of times a day. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 2 minutes. It can just happen initially when you triggered, and then it can extend into a daily practice. Because what happens with daily practice, we're working at a level of neuroplasticity. We really are changing our nervous system. We really are changing our brain. So committing to deep diaphragmatic breathing. Practices like humming and singing are great too. Sometimes that just needs to happen in a shower for many of us. So when you shower, sing away, hum, okay? Gargling is also great. The reason being, you see on that little picture, the nerve descends down our neck. And so anything that vibrates that area here will activate it. Okay, there's many other approaches. I'm just giving you the few simple ones. And then practices like yoga. I used to go to yoga all the time. It really helped me. Yoga and Tai Chi, myofascial release, getting a one of those foam rollers, and then just rolling around on it, right? Putting it under your rib cage, putting it anywhere, because fascia covers our entire body and it's intimately communicated with the nervous system. And so you find that when you work at a level of fascia, maybe it's in yoga with stretching or with this myofascial release through the foam rolling, you'll find that there's suddenly more space in the body, because we're taking out that tension that's sitting in the fascia and that's then restricting the nervous system. So all these practices are really great to directly address your nervous system. And yeah, this is why I really put a lot of emphasis on bringing neuroscience into personal development and healing, because I personally believe that when we understand how our neurobiology drives our thinking and our behavior, and when we have the right tools to address these deep layers of our being, then we are empowered. We don't constantly seek external therapy. We finally have a way to feel empowered and heal ourselves, start healing ourselves. All right, and before we close, I do want to mention that I do have 3 months neurocoaching and subconscious therapy program. Okay, it's really designed for people that want to take their life to a next level. And it consists of weekly one-on-one subconscious therapy sessions, and during which we go into the depths that you were not able to go to alone, because again, as a mode of protection, we build our walls. We hide the deepest pain from ourselves so we don't have to re-experience that. And so I will safely help you get to those deepest issues that have been hidden so deeply. And then along with that, you also have 9 workshops that are really interactive and that help you understand your inner workings and learn how to do a lot of this work on your own. So it's really been designed to empower people. Okay. There's plenty of practical exercises that help you to integrate what you've learned in these workshops, but that also help you integrate what we do in those one-on-one sessions. Okay, all these breakthroughs. Because a lot of the times what I realize that people will have a breakthrough and they don't do anything with it. They don't know how to integrate it into their life. And so it takes a long time for them to really integrate it and start living it. And so these workshops are really designed to help integrate things much faster. Okay, and if you would like to learn more, you can visit my website at sattvaintegralhealth.com. If you would like to participate or sign up for this 3 months program, feel free to do it via the website or email me at alena@sattvaintegralhealth.com. And it's been a real pleasure having you here.